Alright, welcome back guys. This is the sixth and final video in our series on how to write a DBQ for the 2020 APUSH DBQ test. We've done pretty much everything at this point. We've looked now at the contextualization. We looked at our thesis in our first paragraph, or intro paragraph. We looked at a typical body paragraph. We walked our way through the topic sentence, and also some of the things you're going to be doing in those body paragraphs. There's only one little section left on the actual rubric, and that is something called complex understanding. This is the final point in the rubric, and guys, it is the icing on top of the icing on top of the icing. It is something that if you can do it, that's great, but I'm not going to put a lot of emphasis on this one. If you're going to sacrifice any point on the rubric, this is the one you want to do it on. What does it even look like? Well, let's read about it. It says, an essay that earns this point demonstrates a complex understanding of the historical development that is the focus of the prompt, using evidence to corroborate, qualify, or modify an argument that addresses the question. They give you a bunch of different options on what you could do to earn this point. Some of them are frankly a little confusing and vague. Explaining nuance by analyzing multiple variables, that doesn't even mean anything, honestly, in my mind. But if you really wanted to do this, and you really are you've got to have that point, you're a completionist, you've got to have that last point, I would suggest probably either going here or here. You're going to explain the similarity and difference of something. You're going to explain the continuity and change of something. You're going to do both cause and effect of whatever your prompt is. So that's one way of doing it. The other way is I would suggest maybe explaining relevant, insightful connections within and across periods. So maybe there's something, maybe your prompt is about the Civil War, and you think there's something relevant to the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, and you can kind of weave that in there somehow. Again, it can't just be a phrase or reference. I think, again, I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just saying don't stress on this one point. But that is the final piece of the overall rubric. So we've done everything now. The last thing I want to do in this video is I want you to read some student examples. I think this is probably the most beneficial thing to you, to be able to read actual student examples that have been turned in and kind of think, okay, was this a good one or not a good one? So I'm going to present both of these. I'm not going to read them to you. I'll let you pause the video on each page and you can read them yourself, but I really would suggest reading them. I know it doesn't seem like a lot of fun to do this, but I think this will help you almost more than anything else to see what it looks like in the real world. Now, I will, before you read them though, a quick caveat. These were examples done with students doing 7 documents in 60 minutes. You are not. You're doing 45 minutes and 5 documents. So they're going to have more there than you will have, but you can still see how it's done. So let's do it. Real quick though, I want to review the prompt. That way you remember exactly what you're doing with your essay. You're going to evaluate the extent of change in ideas about American independence from 1763 to 1783. That's what you're doing. So go ahead and pause, read the first page, and then we'll go on to the next page. Alright, second page, again, pause and read, please. Third page, pause and read. Fourth page, pause and read. Now, before we go into the strengths of this essay, I want you to kind of just get a quick view. You'll notice they've marked some stuff out. That's fine. I mean, this is meant to be a rough draft after all. So don't feel panicky that, oh my gosh, I have to mark something out. Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. I also like that they have some parenthetical documentation here and there throughout their essay. Good stuff on that. Handwriting, it's pretty legible, and I know some of us struggle in that department. But for 2020, the weird thing is this is going to be typed, so that's not really going to be an issue. But a normal year, you would never get to type; you'd have to write it first, by yourself. All right, some strengths of this essay. First of all, this essay earned all the points. I'll go ahead and throw that out there. It was a great essay. Just a couple of notes here. They do provide really good context. They talk about the French and Indian War, in the first paragraph. Great context there. They make a good thesis with a defensible claim. They mention specifically there's a change in ideas about colonial identity. So good stuff there. They use the documents very, very well. I'll just one quick example. They mention Lady Shaw in that document about the woman visiting her brother in North Carolina. They mention that her point of view is a member of the upper class, someone who would be inclined to protect the existing hierarchy. So good stuff on that one. This author also provides some evidence beyond the documents, which of course you're going to be doing 2 of those. And one example would be the response features an extended discussion of the First Continental Congress. That's not something addressed in any of the documents, and yet they have it in the essay. Good stuff. Now, again, what's the prompt? Evaluate the extent of change in ideas about American independence from 1763 to 1783. Let's look at another student response. Please pause and read every page, please. This is page 1. Pause and read. Page 2, pause and read. And the final page, pause and read, please. All right, so you probably noticed some differences in this essay versus the first essay. This one is obviously much shorter. Like the first essay, there's a lot of stuff being scratched out, and again, there's nothing wrong with that. This is a rough draft after all. This is someone who's writing quickly. That's what you have to do. But it's much shorter. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a worse essay if you're just going by word count. It's about the content, though. That's what really counts in this essay. And let's look at some weaknesses. Why is this not a strong essay? Well, first of all, I'll go ahead and get this out of the way. It earned 1 point. 1 point. And that 1 point it earned was from the thesis. That's it. The context, of which they had very little, was simply too vague and not tied directly to the prompt. So they're not going to earn a point for contextualization, but they do earn a point for their thesis. They did not use the documents properly. Some of them were not used. Some of them were used in a way that was either not right or they just misinterpreted the document. So they didn't earn any points for use of the documents or description of the content of the documents. Their HIP analysis was basically non-existent, and they had virtually no specific evidence beyond the documents. So they would not earn the point there. And of course, this year you're doing 2 of those outside information, outside the document evidence, so they would get 0 out of the 2 if this were a 2020 essay. So I keep talking about how this year is different. This is the rubric I posted to Google Classroom. This walks you through the actual document itself is what you need to do to earn your points. Again, you're looking for a total of 10. Now, normally it's out of 7. This one is out of 10. Now, why would they have more points on a shorter essay? They're trying to give you some frankly easy points. They're going to give you up to 2 points for historical information beyond the documents. So this is your chance to shine what you know outside the documents. Normally that's only 1 point. They're going to give you up to 2 points for that. So that's pretty good stuff. They're going to allow you to get 2 points for the HIP, right? You can do 1 or 2 documents. You're going to do 2. Actually, you're going to do 3 in case you mess up on one. So that's a place where you're earning an extra point that you would not be normally earning a point. So they're giving you, I think, a little bit more wiggle room than they would in a normal one, which reflects the fact that we have not had as much time to practice this as we would normally do in a normal school year. And there's nothing normal about this school year. A couple final thoughts, and then we'll wrap up. As I keep saying, you have 45 minutes, not the normal 60 to write the essay. On a normal 60-minute DBQ with 7 documents, they ask you to spend 15 minutes prior to writing, just analyze the documents, coming up with a game plan. I would suggest spending about 10 minutes. That's about 2 minutes per document when you're analyzing, beginning to group those documents and planning for some sort of structure and coming up with a thesis. So spend, I would say, about 10 minutes, but probably not much beyond that. Otherwise, you're going to be scrambling to write. So, but do set aside at least 10 minutes to plan. Contextualization, that's the very first thing you do in your essay. Remember, if you forget anything else, remember back to your scrawl, the text scrawl from Star Wars, where you're setting the stage for your actual your prompt and your essay itself. Now, Do you have to get all 10 points on the rubric? Of course you do not. Now, they have not told us exactly what is going to be considered a 3, 4, or 5 for the AP test. That's something they do once they grade all the essays, and they kind of sift through them, and they come up with a bell curve and all that. So I don't have the magic number, but I think if you can get 7 out of 10, you are definitely going to get at least a 3, probably more than a 3. So how can you earn 7 out of 10? Well, here's my game plan. If you give me context and thesis in your first paragraph, that's 2 points right out of the gate. If you can describe the content of at least 2 documents, that's going to give you 1 additional point. This is, frankly, guys, not hard at all. You're literally just describing what's going on in the content of the documents. That's not, you can do that. You can do that. If you can do HIP analysis on 2 documents, you're going to earn 2 more additional points. And now, of course, you can do one document, earn 1 point, but let's try to do shoot for 2 documents and 2 points. Frankly, 3 documents and 2 points in case you mess up on 1. And then finally, if you can give me 2 points of evidence beyond the documents, outside information, in other words, you can earn 2 more points. Can you do 1 piece of evidence beyond the document and earn 1 point? Of course you can, but let's try to go for 2. And if you can do all this, that's going to give you 7 out of the 10. This is not counting the complex understanding, which is, frankly, just over the top. This is not even using your documents to support your argument. This is simply doing, I think, some pretty bare bones thing here is getting 7 points out of 10. I really feel that you will be safe on that score. I can't promise it's going to be a 4 or a 3 or a 5, but my gut tells me I think 7 out of 10 would definitely be enough to earn at least a 3, perhaps maybe even a 4. So here's a good game plan. If you want to go for all 10 points, go for it. That's great. I mean, some people, you know, they want to get a 5 on the test, and I don't blame them. It's a great score. But let's be realistic. This is 45 minutes. It's a rough draft, and we have not had the class time that I was expecting to have to review and to go over all this stuff together. So if you can get 7 out of 10, I really feel pretty good on your chances. So that's it, guys. This is the sixth video in our series on the DBQ. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I know this is not going to answer every question you have. In fact, it's probably going to create some questions for some of us. But do take the time to read through the rubric and the examples I put in this video. You know, really take your time. Begin practicing these skills. I'm hoping we can do some of this together. Maybe I can put some assignments out on Google Classroom where you can practice contextualization or practice describing the content or practice HIP analysis, something like that. I think would be pretty beneficial in the coming weeks. Let me know if you have any questions.